Are you upgrading your sim racing wheel? I recently upgraded my sim racing wheel. The first wheel that I had was the Hori Racing Wheel Apex, and if you don't know anything about it, real quick, it is a very basic wheel, pretty cheap, around the $120 mark. It doesn't have any bells or whistles, and I played mainly GT7 and the wheel worked pretty good. It is a good starting point, but I wanted to experience force feedback for myself, so I upgraded to the Thrustmaster T248. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about the pros and the cons of the T248 and let you know, is the wheel still worth it? So I've been sim racing for a couple of years. I've always played racing games with a controller. I think my biggest memory of racing games is Need for Speed Underground for the PlayStation 2, long time ago, and that game was so much fun. Also frustrating. I remember so many of my friends would get really upset when you would lose last minute, but it brings me to today, and I finally upgraded my sim racing wheel. If you've seen my channel before, I started with a very basic Hori Racing Wheel Apex, which was a great first starting point. The biggest thing with it is it didn't have any force feedback, no vibration, no nothing, just a wheel and basic pedal set. I didn't want to spend too much money, but I also wanted to try something different that I could get more immersion out of the racing wheel. Pretty much narrowed it down between Logitech G29 or the Thrustmaster T248. So the number one pro to this wheel is the force feedback. Most of you probably don't have a wheel yet and you're upgrading, or if you're like me and you had a first wheel with no force feedback, it is a really nice feature to have. There's 5 different settings, and I think what's really good about it is the added realism and immersion that you get from the force feedback. You can really feel the bumps when you're going around a corner too fast. It really feels like the car is, struggling to go through the corner. And also sometimes if you go off the track, the wheel will spin, and when you spin out, it really adds to the realism. The second positives about this wheel is the build quality. The paddle shifters are probably the nicest thing about the wheel, and it really feels nice. It gives a nice click when you shift up and down. It's nice and compact and gives a good feel. Another great thing about this wheel is the pedals. The last wheel that I had was the pedals were all plastic. They didn't really have any resistance. This wheel is really nice. The pedals have a metal faceplate where you put your foot, and the brake has a nice spring. Also, the wheel comes with an extra spring if you really want a lot of resistance. I played with it myself, and it's definitely a big difference between the two springs, but it's nice that you do have that option. The basic pedal sets that come with some of the other options only come with 2 pedals. I know this wheel doesn't actually have a shifter, but it is nice that you do have the clutch if you want to upgrade in the future. So just having more resistance offers more realism and better simulation, which is why you're buying a wheel in the first place. And I think the price is good for what you get. Now that this wheel is a little bit older, you can get it on sale. I got this wheel on sale for $250, which I think is a good deal for everything that you get with it. And lastly, it's just a great beginner option. You can use it with PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and PC. There's a lot of different settings that you can do to change the wheel however you like. Okay, let's talk about the cons of the wheel. There isn't too many. Basically, that because it's a beginner wheel, you're not going to get a lot of force feedback out of it. But coming from my Hori Racing Wheel Apex, or if it's your first wheel, it's definitely a great first step, but it doesn't offer a lot. And on top of that, the build quality is good enough for the price point, but the wheel is mostly made out of plastic. I think really the biggest con is it's a little difficult to set up, and not every game is going to work with the wheel. And it is a gear driven and belt driven wheel, so there is some noise when you are using the wheel. You have to be mindful if you're playing it around other people or you're trying to be quiet when playing this wheel. And it wasn't a huge jump, but I did get a lot out of the force feedback and better pedals. I think the pedals are great because the feel of them feels more like a car, as well as the resistance on the brake pedal. My previous wheel was made out of all plastic and didn't have any of that, so I'm happy with my purchase. And with the force feedback and pedals, it definitely gave me a lot more immersion and I'm having more fun, but it did come at a little bit of a cost when it comes to learning curve. If you're coming right from a controller, you are probably going to be a lot worse at the game, but only at first. And I recommend starting with a slower car just to get the feel for it. But it is definitely something you can't really explain until you try it, but you definitely feel like you are more part of the car when you are using a racing wheel versus a controller. And like I said, it's going to take you a little bit to learn how to use the wheel, but once you figure it out, it pays off big time. I really had to learn how to use the shifter. I'm still learning. I drive a lot of automatic in the game, but using the paddle shifters makes it easier to learn and understand how a manual works. And you just have to work on your timing with the brake pedals because it takes a little longer to press down. As with a controller, you can just hit the button really fast and brake quicker. If you're an advanced racer, you might want to invest in a wheel with more force feedback or the ability to change the wheel itself, because this wheel is not changeable. This wheel definitely changed how I play racing games and it made it a lot more enjoyable, and I think it could definitely do the same for you. The T248 offers a lot of great features, but it might be out of your price range. If you want to know more about the Hori Racing Wheel Apex, which is a cheaper option that gets rid of some of the features but saves you money, I made a video that you can check out right here, and it'll answer all the questions and give you everything that you need to know.